p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, happy Friday to you. It's 6 o'clock, I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs. Coming up tonight, it's 5 years to the day that Keir Starmer became leader of the Labour Party. So I'm asking you, do you think he's made the party better or worse? And a woman has been convicted after offering service users outside an abortion clinic a chat. Your thoughts on that? And are the left finally seeing sense about the impacts of uncontrolled immigration? I'm asking because over in Glasgow, they are now busy asking for a pause in dispersal, saying that social cohesion is being wrecked. Oh. And speaking of lefties, Labour-run Westminster Council is apparently asking their staff to now take a white privilege test. Have people got nothing better to spend their time, money and effort and energy on? Give me some strength. Hey, but maybe that's just my white privilege talking. Who knows? We'll look at that test. I might even do the test live on air and see just how privileged I am. You can do it as well at home alongside me. My panel, a new face, Stephen Wolfe, the director for the Centre of Migration and Economic Prosperity. Alongside him, Scarlett Maguire, the former Labour advisor. Before we get stuck in, though, let's cross live and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Good evening. It's just gone 6 o'clock. These are your headlines. The UK's leading stock market suffered its worst daily drop in more than 5 years in the wake of Donald Trump's tariffs. The FTSE 100 closed 4.95% down, a level not seen since the COVID pandemic in March 2020. It comes as US markets have tumbled again as Trump says China played it wrong by retaliating to his tariffs. The US markets opened sharply lower after China retaliated with a 34% tariff on all US imports. Moments before the markets opened, Trump said China panicked and his policies would never change. The retaliatory move from Beijing has rattled global investors, with European markets also tumbling. Meanwhile, the Chancellor says the government is determined to get the best deal for Britain after Trump imposed new tariffs on UK goods. Rachel Reeves says talks are ongoing following Keir Starmer's recent visit to the White House. However, she wouldn't commit to a timeline. In other news, comedian and actor Russell Brand has been charged with rape and 4 other sexual offences following a Met Police investigation. The charges relate to 4 women with alleged incidents spanning from 1999 to 2005 in Bournemouth and Westminster. They include rape, oral rape, indecent assault and 2 counts of sexual assault. 50-year-old Brand will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 2nd of May. The investigation began after media reports last year and remains ongoing. Meanwhile, in the last hour, Brand has posted in a video on X saying, "What I never was a rapist. I never engaged in non-consensual activity." And some breaking news to bring to you now. Buckingham Palace has said the King was not aware of Prince Andrew's alleged links to a Chinese spy. It comes after a new document claimed that the King was aware of an investment fund in which Yang Tengbo, an alleged spy, was directly involved. Now, Buckingham Palace has said a statement responding. While His Majesty met with the Duke and his advisor to hear outline proposals for independent funding over the past year, the individual known as H6 was not mentioned at any time or in any way as part of these discussions. Elsewhere, an anti-abortion activist at the centre of a US free speech row has been found guilty of breaching a buffer zone outside a Bournemouth abortion clinic. Livia Tasici-Bolt was sentenced to a 2-year conditional discharge after breaking a public spaces protection order on 2 occasions. The 64-year-old held a sign saying "Here to talk if you want" near the clinic in March of last year. Her case drew international attention, with the US State Department urging the UK to protect free expression. But a judge said Tasici-Bolt failed to recognise the distress her actions could cause to women using the clinic. And it's hotting up as Britain sizzled with its warmest day of the year so far today, as temperatures reached 23 degrees in the south of England. Hampshire saw the highest temperature and was warmer than Ibiza, Rhodes and Cyprus. But it's not time to get the paddling pool out just yet. Temperatures are set to fall this weekend as cooler air moves down from the north. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that, Sophia. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, a new face to this programme, Stephen Wolfe, the Director for the Centre of Migration and Economic Prosperity. Alongside him, Scarlett Maguire, the former Labour advisor. Welcome to both of you and a very happy Friday to you. You know the drill. It's not just about us three, it is about you at home as well. So what's on your mind tonight? We've got a lot that we need to discuss. Glasgow. You'll know Glasgow has always been infamous, really, for putting their arms out and say, welcome, come on, in you come. All of you, in you come. I'm talking about refugees, asylum seekers. Come on, we're welcoming. Well, unfortunately now, it's all getting a bit much because they are essentially begging the UK government for help. Pause, please pause. Apparently, social cohesion is getting damaged over there. I'll talk about that also. White privileged, are you dripping in it? Absolutely dripping. Well, you'd know if you worked at one council because you'd have to take a test about it. Anyway, we've got all of that plus lots more coming up. Join the conversation all the usual ways. But look, today, it's officially 5 years since Keir Starmer became the leader of the Labour Party. You know, when I read things like that, I had to Google it because I thought, 5 years? It feels like 5 minutes.
I know, it's and then we're getting old.
I know, well, I was just about to say that it makes you realise, gosh, we're getting really old really quickly, but it is indeed half a decade ago today. Do you think then he's made the party better?
Well, he's obviously made it electable. I mean, you know, when he got in, Labour had just lost an election by 80. I mean, been absolutely smashed. And in last July, they won a landslide. So, and one has to say that that's what Keir did to the party.
And do you think that was the Starmer effect, or do you think it was the absolute catastrophic, disastrous effect of the then Tory government and people wanted him out?
I think it was a bit of both. I mean, I do think that they felt that people voted against the Tories, but they also voted for Labour because they thought, I mean, you know, he was sensible and he was strong, and they'd had too many different Tory prime ministers, all of whom sort of messed things up. And so they thought that they would give Labour a chance. And I mean, you know, it was a big victory, and you have to say that he did it. And possibly, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine about who he was up against, Lisa Nandy and Rebecca Long-Bailey, and I was backing Keir from... I was encouraging him to stand from before the election, and I think he was better than either of those two.
Stephen?
Well, I think you could have put a red teddy bear up and actually they probably would have beaten the Conservatives this time. Had he made them partially electable? Yes, I think so. He coming across this kind of calm, administrative, dull, uninspiring, safe hands. You can see it just there. Just looking at it makes me wince with the kind of sense of self-opinionated, loyally boringness that's about him. And that's what he is. He is quite a dull individual. But the problem with it, you turn around in 5 years, it's making us feel old and grey. Actually, his policies are making us feel older and greyer. I've got a mother who's lost her benefits for the winter fuel allowance. She's in her 70s. I don't think that's acceptable. I've got friends around the farmers in the area that I live in, and they too now are looking at actually selling up because they don't feel safe. We've got children here who are beginning to get worried because he's so warmongering that they fear that they're going to actually be dragged into the army to go and fight a war in Ukraine. Across every aspect of our nation, people are deeply worried, terrified about the economic prospects that they don't have in the future. And the only ones that seem safe? The only ones that seem safe are those who work in the civil service, who seem protected by the kind of largesse of this government towards them.
He has just said he's going to cut the civil service, so I think that really isn't true. And he's not a warmonger. What he's trying to do is to say that we support Ukraine and that we have to have a good peace deal. And
has the government not talked about bringing people in through conscription?
No, they have not.
Is that
Germany has talked about conscription. Britain has not. What they've talked about is spending more on defence. That he has not talked about conscription. Other people have said, "Oh, you know, this generation could never join the army."
Head of security, MI5, MI6, are they not part of the government?
But we're not talking about conscription, right? What we're talking about is more money for defence. We're talking about actually taking over...
And is it acceptable to place £100 billion over the next odd number of years that he suggested that we do continually fund Ukraine forevermore whilst the people in this country are struggling? We're about to go on to an issue about immigration and people integration and not having housing. We are spending money on other areas of the world which do not impact us in the long term. We've got America will actually end up protecting us. We need to put our money into our own people and save it, not doing
America has made it quite clear they're not going to protect us. I think if you look at Ukraine, I mean, the reason Europe is so worried about Ukraine is that they're worried about that Ukraine is just the first place that Putin's going to go into. I mean, Putin did go into it. And actually, there is no point. And Britain has been supporting Ukraine from the beginning.
But we're a nation that's declining in wealth. We're poor. We're getting poorer every day. Shouldn't we be pulling the money back and looking after our own and saying, I accept that and I understand it, there's many people who help, but the amounts that are involved in that just show the type of individual he is. He looks to abroad because it looks good for him in terms of its image, but he doesn't feel that he's protecting the interests of this nation.
He feels that with the rest of Europe protecting Ukraine and stopping Russia from expanding, he feels that he's protecting Britain. That's what this is about. Is we're all part of it. We can't be a little island all on our own. That's not. And it's very, very important that we've said we've put a lot of money into Ukraine. Of course, what we really want in Ukraine is a peace deal. Right? And that peace deal is not going to be comfortable for anybody.
But he's put a lot of money also across to the French, and we haven't seen the stopping of the borders. He's put a lot of money into other areas of the country. We're not seeing any benefits about that. He's having us spend more on our energy prices because he wants to be able to support wind farms and solar farms, which is a land grab on the farmer's land. We've seen the idea of compulsory purchase orders, being able to take over land of people who own it at prices less than the market rate. All of these signify to me somebody who's got it in for the country, not got it for the country.
OK, well, let's look at it another way. So the NHS waiting lists have gone down every month for the last 5 months. He has put billions into the NHS to try and turn it around. The NHS really matters to Britain, not just so that people can get their operations done, but actually because the healthier Britain is, the more they can go to work. I mean, we are losing millions, if not billions, on sick pay because people are ill. So that's good. He's put up the minimum wage so that young people, particularly young people and unskilled people, can actually although actually quite a lot of skilled people work for the minimum wage, that they can actually live. What he's trying to do is encourage people into work, right? This is a man who actually really cares about Britain. I mean, I just don't understand this attack on him. And you know, people did vote for him. People did trust him, and it's very difficult. I mean, at the moment,
were those people misled, do you think? Because when you say people voted for him, lots of the things that Stephen mentions there, that wasn't in the manifesto. And people actually, a lot of people, pensioners, for example, that would have voted for the Tories, they wouldn't have voted for the Tories if, for example, they knew that they would have had their winter fuel allowance. Sorry, they wouldn't have perhaps voted for Labour if they'd have known that they'd have had that winter fuel allowance cut, for example.
Yeah, and
farmers.
I mean, I don't think the winter fuel allowance was done particularly well, but I do think a lot of I do think a lot of people, a lot of pensioners who got the winter fuel allowance. I mean, we know they treated it as a joke.
Yes, but that's not my question. My question is, do you think that some of the voters
I think some of them feel some of them across, and actually some of them feel.
That's not why you answer that question. Do you feel that some of the Labour Party voters were misled?
I don't think they were misled.
Well, I can say that I know that people do. For example, in a school that my partner has just been made redundant. As a secretary in a private school, she's been there 23 years. Her partner, her colleague in there, has equally been in there 20 years, a fully paid up member of the trade unions, couldn't get any more left-wing, absolutely opposes me, but then is finding herself suddenly in the same situation as many people in that school, being made redundant because you introduced VAT. And it's not just rich people who are getting impacted.
That was in the manifesto.
But that was in the manifesto.
That is not about... That doesn't mislead anybody. Right from the beginning.
But I'm saying...
No, hold on. For 2 years, I have argued on these programmes, right? I've argued on GB News about the VAT. There was no surprise about VAT being put on private schools, OK?
Terrible
policy. It was in the
manifesto.
People, you might not like the policy, but everybody knew about the policy. There was nothing secret about it. It was announced and it's happened.
But I think what I talked about, that lady who, as I said, was a fully paid up trade union, as my parents' family were as well, until the Labour under Blair, but that was a different story. She feels totally let down by Labour, not just because of that, but because of other things. That school now has lost 8 people. They've closed another school in Salisbury. And what are you going to do? You said we're going to improve other schools. Instead, you're going to try and roll out an anti-white working-class boy film called Adolescence, which he calls a documentary. That's bad spending of money. So you're saying, let's close down schools to get money for improving education, but by the way, we'll then waste it on programmes like that. This is what people are seeing.
Netflix is giving it to the schools for free.
But you've got to take time of teachers and all the rest of it. And this is what people are seeing. It's a pattern. Where they see of incompetence.
No, you keep using examples that just aren't true. You say that the government is spending money on adolescents. Now, you might not like the programme. A lot of people thought it was really good. Not just the left. I mean, all the way through. A lot of people. I mean, I have not seen it. I admit. My daughter said that I must watch it. I think I would find it too gruelling. There is nothing, and what it's about, it's not anti-white working class.
I think you need to then watch it to understand the implication of what it is. Well, already in a class of people that are suffering more suicides for young men than anybody else, who are more likely to suffer the impacts of crime against themselves.
That's what it's about. That's exactly what it's about.
It's about misogyny.
But it's all... Yeah, because there is misogyny, right?
I'm not saying there isn't, but
it's also about the problem of white working class. That white working... I mean, you know... the former head of the British football, Gareth
Southgate,
did a wonderful speech about the lost generation. That actually, and adolescence is part of that, is it's saying we have to do something about white working class boys. It's not ignoring them.
This film isn't going to help them in that way. When you see a girl punching another white working class boy in the school and getting away with it, where you get bullying of a white working class boy and calling him an incel, so then he fights back by stabbing her, which is a wrong thing to do, absolutely. As a lawyer, I'd certainly see that he's imprisoned for doing so. But the whole premise of that, and then the arguments that come with it, is about actually attacking white working-class boys. If you wanted to deal with knife crime as someone of mixed race, you would actually be dealing with black-on-black crime, which is by far more serious, and where this impacts communities. If you wanted to show a proper programme, you would have had a black working-class family going through the pain that they suffer every single day.
I always find it fascinating when everyone seems to be falling over themselves desperately to show adolescents in every single school across the land. What about that 3 girls? Do you remember that drama about the grooming gang scandal? I don't remember all of this kind of desperation to be rolling that out across the schools. Maybe I missed that. Gary, you've got in touch. You've made me smile, Gary. I'll just quickly tell you the story before I go to the break. Gary broke his leg and he got in touch with me a couple of days ago saying he'd broken his leg and he had to be off work for 6 months. And I said to him, good luck with that, because I bet you'll have people chomping at the bit to get you into work. He's just updated us today. He says, I've been to the job centre with my broken leg. They want me to look for work. He says, I've got a metal rod in there. He says it's unbelievable. But Gary, I don't know what your profession is. I still don't know what your profession is. Get in touch and tell me. Look, after the break, lots to discuss. Abortion. A protester has been convicted for offering people a chat outside a clinic. See you in 2.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Is artificial intelligence smarter than you?
Smarter than me?
And me?
I can't even log onto the computer.
Ministers have been told that could be the truth as soon as next year.
There's experts are saying artificial intelligence will overtake human intelligence and that more jobs could be at risk than we think if we don't prepare.
So let's speak now to the CEO of Automated Analytics, Mark Taylor. Good morning, Mark. First of all, will you just explain to us, Mark, when we're talking about AI, what do we actually mean?
So I think what we've got to understand is it's actually artificial intelligence, not artificial consciousness. So I'm still not aware of anybody that can teach a computer common sense. I think that's the big difference between human beings and artificial intelligence. This whole thing about AGI, which AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence, the idea of their AI computer being able to process cognitive abilities similar to a human, so they can allow it to kind of calculate and learn intellectual tasks just like a person. So we've implemented AI across 5,000 companies, both in the UK and US. There's not a single reported job loss.
I'm struggling to believe that, Mark.
But companies have actually employed more people because we've made organisations more efficient. I mean, making organisations more efficient means they're more profitable and therefore they can hire more people. So if I take Pizza Hut in America, we've actually increased their employed members of staff by 4%. It'll never be 100%. It'll never be better than a human being because we've got common sense. It's ingrained in us. You know, we learn it from a very young age. And so therefore, it won't ever replace us. It'll just make us better.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs and Curtle 7, Stephen Wolfe and Scarlett Maguire alongside me. Val says, Michelle, I'm a pensioner and I really did need that winter fuel allowance. I didn't treat it as a joke. I thought that Labour might be bad, but I didn't think they would be this bad, she says. I was asking the question whether or not people, perhaps some people felt misled when they actually voted for that Starmer government on the 5th anniversary of Keir Starmer being elected as leader of the Labour Party. Keep your thoughts on that one coming in now. When it comes to abortion, obviously a very emotive subject. People have very strong opinions on different sides of the fence. But we do have rules when it comes to protesting, and an anti-abortion campaigner has been convicted, found guilty of breaching said rules. She's been given a £20,000 plus fine, actually, for costs, and also a 2-year conditional discharge. Now, this case, I have to say, also caught the eye of the US. The State Department there said it was watching this closely. Where are you on this one, Stephen?
Look, I accept that people can have abortion-supportive views and anti-abortion views. In fact, I had that conversation only yesterday with someone very close to me who believes you should have it. But I'm also one that believes that people should have the right to freedom of expression and freedom of being able to protest if necessary. This is part of our fundamental element of our country.
Let me just interrupt you, because in case you're listening on the radio, the lady in question, she's on the screen now with the sign. So when we're saying protest, just to put this into some context, ladies and gents, she held up like 2 pages of A4, basically. The first one saying here to talk, second one saying if you want. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, and I think, you see, that's a perfectly reasonable thing for somebody to do in this country. I don't think it's anything that, if you're right-minded and sensible, would see that as an aggressive attempt to try and have a conversation with you. And if it's just about feelings, then that's not really the approach of the European Convention on Human Rights. I am a little bit surprised by the judgment on this, saying that they don't have a right on that, because it's quite a broad spectrum as a Human Rights Act. And therefore, I do feel it's part and parcel of what J.D. Vance and the Americans are saying about this country and across Europe, that we're losing the ability to have a view of freedom of opinions and expression. That is not something we should be worried about.
Scarlett Maguire?
I think we have to go back and understand what are called buffer zones. Is that before there was a law about buffer zones, which was keeping protesters away from abortion clinics, there were a lot of people outside abortion clinics, and both the women going in felt intimidated and the workers. And that's why it was brought in, was not because of one person saying something, but that's what she did, was she broke the law. It's a buffer zone. Now, if she wants to go anywhere else apart from an abortion clinic and protest against abortion, if you want to have a march against abortion in London or Bournemouth or anywhere else, that's fine. But buffer zones, they're very, very important. Is there to protect women going in to have a completely legal operation and the workers.
But we also have legislation and regulations and laws under our common law that deals with breaches of the peace, and I think the buffer zones was an excessive element to deal with some of those issues when the police could deal with the matters in hand if they actually had caused the concerns that breached the peace. But what we had is people being overly concerned about emotion. That cannot possibly be seen in any sensible way of being something that is threatening to someone who is a worker, other than you feel emotionally upset by it.
Stephen.
And we're not here just to deal with people who are emotionally upset. We deal with crimes. I cannot see that for a minute.
I've just said that there is a law about buffer zones.
And that's, I'm saying,
and the reason there is a law about buffer... well, you can say that the law is wrong. It is the law, right? There are obviously lots of laws that probably you and I disagree on. It is the law to protect women. And so it doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing, you have to be outside the buffer zone. And she knew what she was doing.
But he's saying he doesn't agree with the buffer zone.
I don't agree with the buffer zone,
but
we can go on to the broader picture and the broader argument that that buffer zone is an example of the breaching of freedom of speech and expression that we have in this country. It's the long march to try and stop people from expressing views.
She can express her view anywhere.
Well, maybe she can express the view outside this building.
She can.
But that doesn't go towards helping people who might have a change of mind.
I think if you have a change of mind as you go into an abortion clinic, then you can change your mind. what buffer zones are about is protecting the women who are going to have abortions.
What do you think to it all? I know that this is a very emotional subject for many people, and also it can be very divisive. Get in touch and tell me your thoughts. I'll include you in the conversation after the break. Now, Glasgow has always been very welcoming, hasn't it, to asylum seekers voluntarily. It's the second biggest city, actually, when it comes to accepting asylum seekers. Anyway, long story short, they're now begging the UK government for conversation, saying that social cohesion is getting damaged, and it's placing unprecedented scale on the system and the infrastructure. We'll discuss that in two.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Although some of the sunniest and warmest weather across Europe is in the UK at the moment, there'll still be some fine weather for parts of Spain. However, an area of rain is moving into Portugal, Madeira, just about avoiding Canaries for Sunday. Further east into central, eastern and southern Spain, as well as Gibraltar, sunny spells. Showers for Italy and for Greece, not as lively as the thunderstorms we saw last week. Then it turns a bit colder for Italy and Greece later next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. There are long delays in Lancashire on the M6. The motorway is blocked northbound at junction 29, where it meets the M65 to the south of Preston at the scene of a multi-vehicle collision. And in northeast to East London at Hackney, the A107 has been closed on Mare Street. There's been an accident in Morning Lane and Reading Lane. And the M5 is blocked northbound at junction 10 in Gloucestershire at the Cheltenham exit following an accident. And on to the Underground, there are minor delays on the Circle Line in London clockwise after a train breakdown at Monument. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This Sunday on GB News Breakfast, we've got a special treat for you.
It's me, Angela Rippon.
For just one morning, the broadcast and Strictly Star joins the breakfast team to bring you all the news as it happens.
Nice positive story then.
Another special day here on GB News.
Well, we're still here after the last one.
GB News Breakfast with me, Stephen Dixon, and Angela Rippon, this Sunday from 6.
Yes, we'll be around for a while.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got my panel, Stephen Wolfe and Scarlett Maguire. Tom says, Michelle, you've just been talking about protesting outside of abortion clinics. How come people are allowed to run riot, intimidating and harassing Jews under the guise of protest, but standing with placards is something that apparently goes too far. But Zoe says, Michelle, it should never be OK to protest inside the buffer zone. It can be very scary for a woman to have an abortion, and it's not taken lightly. If many men knew the pressures that women were under, they would never think this protest is OK. And Joe says, Michelle, if I was a woman, I'm not sure I'd want to see any placards at all. Charles says, my late mum was a member of the SPUC, is that how you say it?
Yes, Society for the Protection of the Unborn Child.
There you go. Regularly stood outside clinics. I never saw her harassing anybody, but I saw multiple women harassing her, he says. There you go. Let me know your thoughts on that. But look, when it comes to Glasgow, we all know by now that they are a city who very much welcomed the refugees, asylum seekers. They're internationally renowned for it. In fact, a few years ago, you might even remember this scene. Was someone who'd apparently breached immigration rules. Someone had been living in that city for quite some time. They were taken from their property early in the morning, put into that van, and the Glaswegians came out en masse, circled that van, basically having absolutely none of it. That person got taken out the van, taken to a local mosque, and I think was then free to crack on. Well, anyway, what's happened now is that the SNP are now requesting conversations with the UK government, saying they want a pause in dispersal, saying that social cohesion is getting damaged, and also the volume is putting an unprecedented pressure onto the services there. Stephen?
Well, if it wasn't so serious, you'd be laughing here, because this is exactly what people like myself have been advocating and implicating for the last 10 or 11 years through the centre that I've been running, is that if you have huge numbers of illegal and legal migration that comes into the country, you're going to get pressures across all sectors of our society, housing, health. And we're seeing that now. Glasgow came out, and the SNP came out, and they're reaping what they sowed. They wanted more people to come in, and now they're facing the very consequences of large-scale numbers. And one thing that you look at the end of the article, what the SNP are particularly worried about, is they're saying we've got 4,000 people who are making asylum claims, and when they get the right to remain, the first thing they're doing is applying for family reunions, which is creating a huge problem. For every asylum application you get, at least 3 others on a family reunion come. So you're going to get quadruple the numbers coming through. That's what they can't take.
Scarlett?
Well, again, I've gone on this programme and said that the problem with the asylum system is that it doesn't work, and you shouldn't be having thousands of asylum seekers. You should have them processed, and that's the problem. I mean, they're not talking about refugees here. They're talking about asylum seekers. Asylum seekers are put... That's what the article is about, right? The article is about asylum seekers. And the thing about asylum seekers is they should be processed, and either they can then become refugees and they can work and they can contribute to the country, or else they get sent away.
What the SNP are finding the problem is that once people are getting the right to remain, they then are stuck with a law that happens in Scotland, doesn't apply to the UK, where they have 56 days in which they've got to put them... Once they've got right to remain, they can apply for housing. That's their issue. They can't get housing, and there's not enough social housing for them to come in. So this is the stage after the asylum application that they're finding the problem. And this is part of the issue. We've had 1.2 million asylum applicants in the country since year 2000. We are actually processing more asylum applications than we ever have done in this country. And all it does after they get the right to remain is it moves it onto the pressures of the councils, not the Home Office. It doesn't become a Home Office cost. It becomes a cost of the council and the taxpayer, the council tax.
Because you're so good at these statistics, even as you know, they're processing more asylum and they're sending more people away, right? It's not that every asylum seeker gets to stay. Many are sent away, and they are being sent away in plane loads at the moment.
Well, perhaps I'll send you the research on the detentions, the removals process that you've got. The 20,000 that the government is saying that they had as removals only this week has not been verified in any stats that we've seen so far. What we can draw out from that is that many of those are actually those who've come here and overstayed visas. These are people who've come in as students or work visas and been offered the opportunity, as they do under the law, to be able to return on their own accord. None of these are coming down to those who've come over on small boats, for example, or in the asylum process that we have. The only way that we're seeking to return people are those who are going currently to Albania and some other countries like the Philippines, for example, or Thailand, sorry.
No, I mean, so to go through the asylum process, which needs to be hurried up, if you are not a refugee, you're sent away, right? Except the problem is for countries where you can't send people back, which is the Horn of Africa, countries at war. I mean, for instance, all the Ukrainian refugees, of which there are masses, many in Scotland, the Ukrainian refugees can't be sent home,
well,
right? Even though their visas have long expired.
They're very different. They came in a programme that we opened up with a right to come here, but the top 4 nations that come here are Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan and Somalia, and those are the 4 nations. We also have China and India, which in the top 10, and they come over through visas through students and through work visas, and then overstay. But those 4 countries, you're right, we don't return them because we don't have any returns policy to them. And what that means is that once they're here, they know they'll never be returned. We have nearly 250,000 people who are failed asylum applicants who are still in this country. You've shown on this show sometimes the unfortunate small minority who commit crimes and serious violent crimes such as murder, who should have been deported. But in this country, we're not deporting those who have actually failed asylum. We are speeding up the numbers that are coming through, and all that does is lead to large numbers of people who are asking for family reunions. And I have spoken to Labour MPs who are beginning to recognise that this is a serious issue for them, that the family reunion is a big problem. The costs are unexplainable and no longer acceptable.
And we talk about those 24,000 that the government actually said that was the figure that they was banding around, wasn't it,
Yeah,
saying that they'd returned these people. But it's not. So many of that figure were actually voluntary returns, where in many cases, actually, the taxpayers will have paid for those people to go back. And actually, when you look at that same period, we've had 23,000 plus people enter the country illegally. So for me, it's an absurd claim. I don't know why they're walking around trying to claim that as some kind of credit. Social cohesion, this is one of the things that the SNP are flagging. What's your thoughts on that?
The problem is that if you're an asylum seeker, social cohesion just isn't going to happen. You're in a hostel, you're not allowed to work, and you're kept there. I mean, you can only begin social cohesion once you become a refugee, that you're learning English and you're getting a job. And then things change. So that's the problem is, I mean, as he says, is what they want. But if you look at the statistics in the Daily Mail article, I mean, one in 150 people in Glasgow are asylum seekers. I mean, it's 0.75%. So they're not overrunning the country. They're not overrunning the city. But it's quite right that he says, you know, we're going to talk to the Home Office. It's not we're going to plead with the Home Office. We're going to go and talk to the Home Office.
But if I may, that number actually becomes greater because when they look at those numbers, that's currently those claiming asylum. Those who've been granted right to remain or leave to remain actually inflates the numbers because that is not included in the asylum numbers. So that's why people are starting to see huge numbers. You've got 2 categories: those who've claimed asylum, those who've been granted, and those who then claim for their families to come through. And these are the huge numbers that we're beginning to face. Europol have said that 2.5 million people are coming in on the western and eastern routes into Europe this year. That is why we've seen an increase of 33% on the numbers crossing the Channel this year. As they come across, we're going to get more. We are not being able to stop them. This issue is going to get bigger, and cohesion will be one of the impacts of that.
And one of the things we should be doing is actually talking to Europe about how we're all going to deal with it. Because there is no question about it that if you talk to Spain, Italy, Germany, France, they have many, I mean, most of them come through then and then if they'll take the boat, right? Most of the refugees stop in one of those 4 countries. I mean, we get a tiny amount.
4 countries are main ones.
But they're the main one. I'm not saying they're the only ones. But what I'm saying is that actually it's a European problem. I mean, you've just said people are coming in. People are fleeing Afghanistan. I mean, partly. You know, we have a duty to. We said we'd save Afghanistan, and then we just
yes,
left.
But hold on, we also have a legal route, don't we? We have a legal system for people from Afghanistan. I just want to give you all some numbers.
Long ago.
I want to give you all some numbers on this. In Glasgow, they've got 6,735 available bed spaces, so like emergency bed spaces, for want of a better word. 4,100 of those are going to people awaiting asylum decisions. By my back of a fag packet maths, that's about 60%, probably a little bit higher, actually. So, I mean, when you talk about social cohesion, could you imagine yourself being in desperate need in Glasgow, and then you're struggling to get the assistance that you need because over 60% are being taken up by people that many would argue perhaps shouldn't have entered the country in the way that they did in the first place. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out with that.
So what's your answer?
My answer, I would have absolutely none of it. I wouldn't have had any of this small boat crossing a very long time ago. I would have looked at whatever it took to turn back those boats to France. I certainly wouldn't have been sitting here pontificating about all the things that they've been doing. I would have had a set of balls about me, and I really would have explored and looked at engaging the Navy. I would have declared a national emergency, and I literally would have not taken no for an answer when it comes to trying to discover ways to push those boats back. That's what I'd have been doing. I definitely would. That's why it's all a good job I'm not your Prime Minister. I say that often, don't I? Anyway, look, coming up after the break, it's my favourite part of the week, ladies and gents. Dewberry Tavern opens. I need it tonight. I need it. White privilege tests. Are you dripping in white privilege?
Are we actually going to take the test? That would be...
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The sunny skies that many of us have had through this week will continue through the weekend, but then so will that slightly frustrating wind. It's all thanks to high pressure sitting to the north, bringing the settled weather, bringing the sunshine, but the winds go clockwise around high pressure, so drawing in some cooler air from the North Sea, and that will also generate a little bit of mist and low cloud. That's going to spill in through the night, making for a fairly grey start to Saturday across the Midlands, eastern England and eastern Scotland. It'll be a chilly start as well, certainly through some sheltered glens. We'll have a frost maybe down to -3 or -4, +3, +4 in most towns and cities. It will be a drab start over the East Midlands, much of eastern England and eastern Scotland, and this may well stick around for a good chunk of the day on the coast, but inland it should clear away. Chilly start, yes, as I mentioned, a touch of frost, but a cracking day on the west coast of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine again for Northern Ireland, West Wales, Northwest England, Southwest England too, but it will be a cloudy start for parts of the Midlands and eastern England. Pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will break up pretty sharply through the morning, so that certainly by late morning it's sunny almost everywhere, just with the potential for some of this mist and low cloud to stick to some North Sea coast with that breeze coming in. Now that breeze will have an impact on the day. It'll look fine and sunny, it'll look quite warm, but it'll feel cooler because of that breeze. We should still get to 18, 19, perhaps even 20 across the south, but that wind will make it feel fresher. Those North Sea coasts, some places are going to stick in single digits, and that wind will really make it feel quite fresh. That breeze is still there across eastern Scotland and the Northern Isles on Sunday. Again, some har at times, but again, for most places, Sunday's another cracking day. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures are touched down, but the winds are a little bit lighter on Sunday. The winds are easing through next week, and the sun, for most of us, will continue to shine.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is, I was just about to say, this is Dewberry Tavern. Yes, it is, actually. This is Dewbs and Co. Stephen Wolfe and Scarlett Maguire available. It's my favourite part of the week. Cheers.
Yeah,
cheers, Scarlett.
We have
cheers,
the sun.
Stephen,
we have
yeah,
the sun.
cheers. And cheers to each and every one of you at home.
Oh, that's nice, actually.
I'll tell you, do you know, I can't even tell you how many times people stop me and say that you actually do enjoy sharing a drink with me in Dewberry Tavern on a Friday. It's nice, you know, because I do think a lot of people out there, you can get quite lonely, especially if you're living on your own. You might not be able to get out and about. You might be like Gary with his broken leg. Hey, Gary, I'd love to know whether or not you can actually get to the pub. If you can't get to work, I wonder if you're actually able to get down to the pub. And I'm still trying to find out what it is that you do for a living. If you don't know what I'm talking about, viewers, you missed the top of the show, watch it back on Catch Up. But look, Westminster City Council. There's a bit of debate about this, right, because Westminster Council are denying this, but it's been reported, so therefore I am definitely going to discuss it in my pub tonight. Apparently, they're asking staff to take a so-called white privilege test. Now, this is all about they're trying to recruit and make sure that they're recruiting people from the now so-called global majority, and it's asking questions. I did this test, by the way, and apparently it tells me that I'm moderately privileged. It's asking you, did your parents or your guardians read to you when you was a child? Do you have to take annual leave for your religious holiday? Is English your first language? Do you have an illness or a disability? Are you a carer? Have you ever been stopped and searched by the police? Do you shop at Waitrose or Marks and Spencer's? Are you a white male? And so on and so forth. And that's how you get your calculation. Who even does do all the food shopping at Waitrose and Marks and Spencer's? Who even is that posh?
I do most of my food shopping at Waitrose.
Oh, well, that's a surprise. What, really?
Well, I do the daily stuff at Baby Sainsbury's because it's just up the road from me. But yeah,
No, Waitrose or Marks and Spencer's.
No. What I'm saying is when I had a car, I went to Waitrose every week.
Right.
And it is in walking distance, but I don't go there that.
Good job you don't have the champagne, because going to Waitrose with champagne, you'd be going Labour champagne socialist.
I know.
What do you think to these kind of tests, though, and people doing them?
I think they're abysmal. I think they're divisive. I've always felt that anyone that tries to over-egg the pudding on what used to be called BAME. The idea, we just had a brief discussion about it. When I was younger, I was called quarter caste. My father was half caste. We then had people who were black. Then you were called mixed race, which I hated because it always sounded like a bag of sweets, a mixed bag of sweets. Now you've got global majority. And there was a poet, sadly I can't remember, a black poet, who said, why is the Labour Party and the left continually changing my own heritage in this country by the colour that basing me on my colour? And I think that's the problem. In trying to be fair and equal and open, you've gone too far. This is no longer necessary in this country to have this sort of test, when you can see sportsmen represented in this country from any colour that you have, when you've got prime ministers of different nationalities, different religions, and all across the spectrum at one stage, business leaders, lawyers, doctors. So the idea that you need to look at white privilege is a nonsense, and it's a small minority of people who still cling to this idea that you need to indoctrinate white people that they have privilege and that they are not racist.
OK, so first of all, can I say, having read and reread the article and actually tried to get hold of Westminster City Council but failed, is this is on their intranet. It's not. It's on their staff intranet. It's not put on by some big person. It's just that somebody obviously put it on. If you read, it's got very little about race, actually. And frankly, I'm sure, well, I can tell you that black people shop at Waitrose, because I meet a lot of black people when I shop at Waitrose. I mean,
exactly the point. That's exactly the point,
So I'm
isn't it?
saying this isn't about
It's not necessary.
No. What a lot of young people say is check your privilege. And it's not about what, it's not about colour, actually. It's about all sorts of things, which is why Were You Read To as a Child is... So, yes, I read books to my children. I'm not sure. I mean, frankly, my mum had 5 children in 8 years. I doubt she read to me. I was the first. But actually, I know my children are privileged. I mean, they've had a life where they were expected to go to university. They were expected to do well. I just think
but
it's
that's
fine.
Economic privilege, not necessarily because of the colour of your skin.
Stephen, I know you haven't seen this. This is very little about colour. This is a lot. So as I said, it's about
that.
Do you shop at Waitrose? Were you read thing? Do you take time off for a religious holiday? Which is not about colour.
Yes, but hold on, because the part of this, one of the reasons it's on the intranet and stuff like that is because it's part of their quest when it comes to their recruitment practices to make sure that they are in part reflecting the demographic of their, what's it called, their, not constituents, but their borough.
Their borough.
And actually making sure that they have people recruited from the so-called non-global, the global majority,
the global majority, which is nonsense.
Yeah, but Michelle, this has got the two of them have been put together, and this is on the intranet, and you can.
What section is it on? What section is it in under the intranet? Because I'd bet my bottom dollar that it's under this inclusive, diverse recruitment part of their intranet. It's not just randomly going to... It's not going to be on a...
But if you look on...
Are you bored? Do you need a new hobby? Take this quiz section of the intranet, is it?
But what we do know is that this is just part and parcel of what happens in many companies across the country now. And what we also know, it's part of the training programmes. I was talking to a chap who's an electrician who's
Good, you'll have to tell us that story a bit later on, because look, time flies. This is why I love Dewberry Tavern. There's always one fella that goes on and on and on in the corner of the pub, isn't he, Paul? Paul, you've told me that you live alone. You don't drink anything Sunday to Thursday, so you love it, you say, when Dewberry Tavern opens. You enjoy sharing a drink with us. You say that we make you smile. Thank you, Paul. I really do appreciate that. George says white privilege is surely a thing of the past, and Pam says stereotyping people on their colour of their skin surely is racist in and of itself. Many of you getting in touch about that awful situation in Birmingham. I'll perhaps touch that on Monday, but for now, Tavern is closing. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The sunny skies that many of us have had through this week will continue through the weekend, but then so will that slightly frustrating wind. It's all thanks to high pressure sitting to the north, bringing the settled weather, bringing the sunshine, but the winds go clockwise around high pressure, so drawing in some cooler air from the North Sea, and that will also generate a little bit of mist and low cloud. That's going to spill in through the night, making for a fairly grey start to Saturday across the Midlands, eastern England and eastern Scotland. It'll be a chilly start as well, certainly through some sheltered glens. We'll have a frost maybe down to -3 or -4, +3, +4 in most towns and cities. It will be a drab start over the East Midlands, much of eastern England and eastern Scotland, and this ha may well stick around for a good chunk of the day on the coast, but inland it should clear away. Chilly start, yes, as I mentioned, a touch of frost, but a cracking day on the west coast of Scotland. Plenty of sunshine again for Northern Ireland, West Wales, Northwest England, Southwest England too, but it will be a cloudy start for parts of the Midlands and eastern England. Pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will break up pretty sharply through the morning, so that certainly by late morning it's sunny almost everywhere, just with the potential for some of this mist and low cloud to stick to some North Sea coast with that breeze coming in. Now that breeze will have an impact on the day. It'll look fine and sunny, it'll look quite warm, but it'll feel cooler because of that breeze. We should still get to 18, 19, perhaps even 20 across the south, but that wind will make it feel fresher. Those North Sea coasts, some places are going to stick in single digits. digits, and that wind will really make it feel quite fresh. That breeze is still there across eastern Scotland and the Northern Isles on Sunday. Again, some higher at times, but again, for most places, Sunday's another cracking day. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures are touched down, but the winds are a little bit lighter on Sunday. The winds are easing through next week, and the sun, for most of us, will continue to shine.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. There are long delays in Greater Manchester on the M62 eastbound. 2 lanes remain closed from junction 20 to 21 east of Rochdale. Now the scene of an accident is queuing back to the M66 on camera, and the M5 in Gloucestershire is down to a single lane northbound at junction 10, the Cheltenham exit. Recovery works underway following a multi-vehicle crash. In north-east London, Mare Street to Hackney closed following an accident, leaving a number of buses having to divert. And in Somerset, the A371 at Wincanton is closed off the Holbrook roundabout following a collision. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist.